Paul Daner, Mark Shalafoo, from listener questions to some running gags. Insider stories, ambush life, that dad life, and respect for flags. Kick off the weekend, alright? It's the Growler Friday Show. It's Who Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Who Dey Light. Paul Daner Jr., Mark Shalafoo here with you on a Friday. It's a great Friday. You've got Kentucky Derby, Cinco de Mayo's coming. There's so many reasons. Flying Pig weekend here in Cincinnati. It's a celebration, Mark.
I like that Flying Pig was third. The one that is the most active and takes a lot of energy. That's lower on the list than the 2 party days of the Derby.
Yeah.
And yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, there's a lot happening. That's all I'm saying. My daughter's birthday. We're doing the first ever birthday sleepover party. So I feel like it's kind of a weird like pressure to entertain, but also not be part of it. So I'm taking all advice from Growl Pals on how to handle the first birthday party sleepover for the 8th birthday.
Oh, that's big. How many kids?
We tried to keep it small. We're going to keep it just be like 5 total, including my.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, how many did you think it should be? Like 30 and 5?
No, I'm just saying I didn't want it to get too big where it's like, it can get it. We're not ready. We're not prepared for it. It's more of a trial run than anything. Yeah,
I've got some sleepover stories, I guess, that we could do during dad life to a little bit of advice as you go down that perilous journey of the first sleepover. Yeah. What flag are you flying today?
I got the Reds flag up still. They're on a home stand. Oh, see, you grimaced.
Yeah, because I thought there'd be a horse flag. You just mentioned 3 holidays, and there's no Flying Pig or a horse flag or the city of Cincinnati just because it's such a big weekend. A sleepover flag. I don't know. Something that's
birthday flag will be up when my daughter comes home tonight. So I will do a switch right after this show.
The ceremonial switch.
Because birthday weekend, it's always like, when do you go to the birthday flag is kind of a question. But for right now, I still have the Reds flag up there on the homestand. So I just was kind of keeping that going. But birthday flag going up here momentarily, I should say. So maybe you caught me a little bit on that one.
Yeah, I think the Reds flag probably replaced the Growler flag, which you usually fly when we're doing a live show, which we had the big post-draft special this week.
Yeah, we did. It was a great time. So many people coming up to us, and it was awesome. I gotta give one special shout out to Adam and the crew, who made full kit wanker full kits. Okay, so if you watch and remember this episode, there was a question and a conversation about a full kit wanker, which is when you wear the entire uniform to a game, pants and all, socks, whatever. And apparently over in England, that's apparently quite embarrassing, and they use one of their most derogatory terms towards it, and we just use it not even thinking about it. And so it became funny. And then this happened. So these guys, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, which please always subscribe to our YouTube channel, show up. They made them. They're in. If you notice, they have the shorts and the shirts that they made that says Full Kit Wanker with the Growler logo. And they even put our nicknames on the back, J-Mo, and then Paulie D, which Duke Tobin called me at the combine. That was a thing. So these are the real ones here. So shout out on the Full Kit Wanker shirts. Loved it. That was hysterical. One of many really funny moments from the show. I had a great time down there. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. And I was sorry I missed that whole exchange. They had a Marky C shirt for me, which I do appreciate, but I was still locked in with Mike Potts getting him ready for that. Trying to take care of the guest. I think we were trying to procure little water bottles, and I know that was a big hit for him. So, but yeah, it was a thank you to him for coming down. I think people liked hearing what he had to say. And I know that the show sounded good. So thanks to everybody that listened to it afterwards. And it was a fun first show back down there. It's a good hang always down there.
Yeah, such a great time, such a great place to go. I'll probably be back down there again tonight because I'm going to the Reds game tonight.
Oh wow!
So I mean, it's always my stop on the way in the Reds game. Go in, grab a beer, maybe a cookie. Charlie, by the way, and I just have to. I know that the people are like, you're wasting time. When do we talk about the Bengals? But I got to talk about Charlie's cookie situation because Charlie, our guy, of course, loves the cookies. The Charlie's cookies is basically what they are right now. They're delicious. He claims he could eat 8 of those in one sitting. I feel like he could have gone higher. I don't feel like that was an impressive enough number to say. They are big, though.
They're big cookies.
I'd like to see it.
I mean, and if you're not an adult that's in regular eating challenges, that's a lot of cookies to take. I mean, what are you thinking? You're going to hit 5. You're going to hit a wall of just sugar and grossness, and there's no way you're going to get to 8, even if he is a little bit of a deceptively bigger guy. And that's his words, not mine. But yeah, he said 8. You know who else wasn't impressed by that? Your wife. She said that she could do 8. I'm like, there's no chance. I don't know why everybody's inflating how many cookies they can smash, but we're definitely going to have to do this at a future show. There's going to be a cookie contest.
I feel like there's no doubt that we have a cookie eating contest at one of the shows for one of our prizes that we give away when we go. So sometime next year, whenever our next show is there, I think just at a table off to the side of us talking is just a line of people seeing how many cookies they can smash during the duration of our show.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. And you can give away some free tickets to that since you tried to give away our preseason tickets on like 4 different games.
I did.
Every game we did, we're like, all right, now it's time to give away the preseason tickets. And the person that had just won the preseason tickets was like, wait, what? I thought I got the preseason tickets. And
I was really excited to give away preseason tickets.
Yeah, you're like Oprah. Preseason tickets for you, preseason tickets for you, and just throwing them around.
Great time. Thanks to everybody that came down and that's listened. Go listen to the Potts show. It's awesome. He was great. So check that out. Okay. What's your favorite story this week, Mark?
Well, we're still kind of pulling out of that draft week stupor a little bit before we transition to the full offseason mode. And right now, the thing that bugs me the most, and I know we're going to get into a bunch of great Growl Pal questions later, but I still can't get over the draft pranks that, took up a lot of airtime. I guess Sanders was the biggest one, but I heard that Abdul Carter got one of those prank phone calls too. They're just, and my problem with that, I mean, obviously it's cruel, sure, to try and steal a guy's moment like that, but they're not even good pranks. That's not a good, smart prank because you got on your dad's iPad and found out the kid's draft day phone number. Like, that's not that creative. It's not even that funny. Like, you got to up your draft day pranks. Like if I'm on board with this, maybe if you're at the dude's draft party and when he gets picked, you and a buddy, dump the cooler of ice water over his head like he's a coach that just won a big game, something like that's a little bit more fun and the cameras like that. But the fake you're getting drafted phone call, I mean, that's just, it's not even that fun.
Yeah. And then you get the kid. So it ends up being Jax Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator from Atlanta. It was his son Jax, who's 21, and he gets a hold of the phone list or whatever, and is the one that does this. And then the league finds the Falcons $250K, and then finds his dad $100K. And I'm just trying to imagine the sit down at the first dinner table, post $100K fine. You're a 21-year-old kid. You did something dumb, and it cost your dad $100,000. That is an icy Thanksgiving.
I know, especially because you're, a defensive coordinator is making great money. So your dad's pretty well off. And I'm sure that, that results in lots of great family vacations and, nice gifts for him. But yeah, that definitely changes the dynamic when it's that big of a fine for your dad. Like, that's a lot of grass cutting he's going to have to do to pay off $100K before he gets there.
Is that just like a standing, you don't get birthday gifts for the next decade situation?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how this doesn't follow this guy too, as he's probably getting ready to graduate in a year or so. Like, that's going to be the first Google hit anytime somebody throws his name in there for probably a very long time. And he's going to have to escape that. And that's going to be something he has to talk about in job interviews and stuff like that. I mean, it's embarrassing. And I'm sure that's going to probably affect his dad's professional, prospects too down the line. If he wants to move up to a bigger job someday, maybe. I mean, he's going to have to deal with all of that stuff. I don't know that I've ever seen a bigger problem with having your child on a screen before. Usually that's like toddler stuff, like take the iPad away from the 8-year-old because she's having a temper tantrum. But yeah, keep the iPads away from the 21-year-old before they cost you $100,000. It's crazy.
The other thing is there's plenty of players that have been pranked just like this before. This happened to Mohamed Sanu during his draft. I can think it's like every year there's one of these that like, oh, you got the prank call, whatever. But because it was Shedeur and his situation and it was so public and awful, like I'm not diminishing like how hard that probably was, whatever. But like this does happen every year. I think it's just the nature of his situation that ends up turning it into let's make an example out of these guys. Because I mean, I can think of almost every year you have one of these Bengals picks mention, oh yeah, I got pranked by somebody that called in, and it's like, okay, we're choosing this moment again. It's the Shedeur thing. You guys at the live show were triggering me. I couldn't. The whole weekend of constantly hearing about Shedeur Sanders every single moment of the day on the broadcast was just irritating me. And then people were trying to trigger me and push me at the broadcast again live. And this is the same thing. It's like because of his situation, it becomes the big make an example. And that's fine. I'm just over. I just don't want to hear the name anymore.
Well, I think the biggest prank you can have is getting picked actually by Cleveland as their 5th quarterback. Like that is a bigger prank than the fake phone call. It's like, hey, you're going to be the last guy in the quarterback room and have fun. You know, best man win here. It's not a fun situation to talk about for sure. But we're starting to get to that point now where, we're shifting away from draft stuff. This will probably be our last big, draft Q&A show. And then we got to start moving on to other storylines, other things to watch. So what's your favorite thing to keep an eye on right now?
Yeah, well, of course, you have what's always going to be almost like the recurring storyline. And
like sand through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Of course. The Trey Henderson thing is going to continue to follow us. So we'll keep monitoring that. There's always like every week there's a new rumbling, a new rumor, a new thought, a new potential for appearing on Pat McAfee. So we'll just we're going to keep monitoring that right now and seeing where that's at. I do think, the Bengals are doing some post moves. I mean, we're going to get the Pratt move will happen. I think right now they're just trying to figure out in terms of the trade thing is still out there. Like, is there somebody that wants Germaine Pratt in a trade? And if not, then you'll see him let go. They'll save that 5.6. Like that's happening. It's just a matter of the timing of it right now as they try to figure out other things. I mean, probably 1 or 2 veterans that are still out there will probably get added to the roster. I think defensive tackle, they didn't take one. So you probably will see them looking around in that market. I mean, they like some of the undrafted guys they brought in, the Gregory kid from Arkansas, Cross from Notre Dame. We touched on them the other day. But I think that it feels like it could use a depth. You don't want to be in Lawrence Guy position again, right? Where it's like where you got to bring in Lawrence Guy after the final cuts and he can't pull his pants up. And it's like it's a whole thing. It was really he's kind of the personification of what went wrong last year. And they only have 4 defensive tackles right now, plus the UDFAs when they come in. So it feels like that's an area where you would see a depth piece. So I think you're trying to figure out where they're going to do. I think they're a little shy on special teams too. And that's something that they got to keep an eye on. So like when we talk about safety, right, which is a place where there's a lot of options out there. And they have right now a safety room of Geno Stone and Jordan Battle. And then behind them, Tyson Anderson and Dejon Anthony. It feels light. It feels like it needs a player, a veteran backup. But the thing is, they need special teamers there. So Dejon and Tyson, obviously Tyson is the special teamer. They need, if you're going to be there, they need, because their tight ends don't do anything on special teams. They're all non-factors essentially on teams. So if you're Darren Simmons, you're like, I need somebody who can do special teams. And so if you're bringing in a safety, that's something that they have to weigh right now is if I'm going to bring in a safety, Are they a veteran who's like, I don't do special teams, or I'm not going to do special teams, or they're terrible at it because they've never really done it?
Yeah.
Can they contribute in both places? Are they willing to come to Cincinnati and be a backup / special teamer? So when you think about it, that's part of, because they're not, any of those guys that are out there right now aren't replacing Geno Stone right now.
Yeah.
It's just not what's going to happen.
That's just kind of where we are.
Those are kind of the pieces that are still floating.
I mean, and that's not anywhere close to the drama that we were going into the offseason with last year, where it's like, is Joe Burrow's wrist even going to be able to work anymore? Who knows? Yeah. Is Jamar Chase ever going to take off that hat? What's happening with T? Like, all this stuff that was kind of dominating the airwaves for a long time, gave us a lot of fodder last offseason, and now we're left with trades of our lives and depth pieces on the lines and some special teamers. I mean, there's not a whole lot of drama left with what this team is going to be.
By design. I mean, they have, with the very beginning of the offseason, when we talked about this is what we said. Like, you guys need to cut out the drama. And they have been public about it. It's not a thing where it's felt like they're cutting out the drama or whatever. They have been like, we need to be closer. We need to feel like more of a team. We have to build chemistry, camaraderie. And that is what your stars being there and being happy and not having a bunch of distractions that are part of it. I think the business side with Trey is minimal distraction, because we've talked about this before. That's just kind of what Trey Hendrickson is. That's his situation. And that's good. They're in a good place with that. I think they have done a good job of not allowing last year's circus to happen. And then you have this draft. We've talked about that before. So I think all by design is to like try to start fast by having everybody on board, no drama, not a ton of stuff you have to worry about. And that can change in an instant. But for now, it seems like they've done a good job of avoiding a lot of that stuff.
I think the biggest sign of that change, too, is just like there was one guy that was reliable for a storyline, and that was Germaine Burton. Is he going to be popping up on an eviction report? Is he going to be at the slot machine at the casino? What's going on with Germaine Burton? And now all you hear is that he's just at the stadium. He's at practice. He's just doing his job all the time. And, even he was like reliable for some sort of craziness, and now he's got it locked in and no drama from him. And which is, that's exciting to see what he might be, what a locked in Burton might be, but even that is gone. So yeah, definitely getting rid of a lot of this drama.
Believe it when I see it. But right now he's he's popping up in the cafeteria. So good for him. All right. Speaking of popping up. Oh, how about that? Huh? Smooth segue. Let's bring in our guy, Eric Sztanyo from Keller Williams. Sztanyo, what is going on? How we doing?
We are doing great. Busy Friday, a lot going on here, but it's good to be here. Played Stump the Sztanyo down at the live show.
And he won.
Are you smarter than a Sztanyo? Sorry. You tried to stump the Sztanyo. But I don't had a great time down there.
Yeah, I mean, Stump the Sztanyo suggests that it's really hard to stump you, and that was your first ever win in Smarter Than a Sztanyo.
Well, I did appreciate how you asked the Growl Pal, is Sztanyo going to get it right or not? And instantly his response was no way.
Yeah, authority with authority.
No confidence in him. So, but then I got the pity. Yeah, I got the pity response.
She did not. I think she just wanted to be part of the game. She interjected before we were about to just call it, and then she's like, "Wait, can I say yes?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not? If you want to waste your pick that way, yeah, go ahead." And then you nailed the trivia question and won some preseason tickets for whoever that was.
The trivia question was, how many Clemson Tigers have the Bengals selected since Zach Taylor has taken over in 2019? And the answer was 4, and you got it right, which I really thought someone had fed you. I was so surprised that you had gotten it. I really just assumed that someone had fed you the answer. But no, you actually got it right, which was you didn't name anybody.
I did not name a single person, but I nailed the question. And
but you got it right.
I got it right. That's right. And I'm still just giving away things to the Growl Pals, It's what
we're coming through.
It's what you do, and we certainly appreciate it. And make sure if you're buying or selling, Sztanyo's your guy. Twitter, Manyo3, the number 3, YouTube, Team Sztanyo. Go on over there. All the good stuff is up on the Team Sztanyo YouTube page. What do you got for me today?
All right, here we go. Thinking about these rookies thinking about the draft. We're post-draft now, and fans, we get all into the RAS scores, the PFF scores, the positional value. It's just all about, can you help the team or not? And I'm just like, hey, you know what? These guys are human beings. They're not just statistics. They're not just numbers on a chart. And it's a big transition for these guys, right? They're a new city. There's fan expectations. They got to learn a playbook. They got to figure out finances. And these are just kids, right? Well, except for Demetrius Knight. These are just kids, right? Yeah. They're young guys. And, I just remember I used to look up as a kid, I look up to these athletes and think, man, these guys, they're my role models. They're my idols. They've got it all put together. And now as a 43-year-old husband, father of 5, all I can think about is, I really hope they have a good financial advisor.
Yes. Or realtor.
Or a realtor. That's right. We need
they need a realtor
advisors in their life. So yes, you've been around this year after year. You see this, them entering in the league and all the things they kind of have to do to make that leap. And we know some of them make it, some of it don't. And that's tough. But I guess my question is a couple questions. Number one, what's the best advice you would give them as they're entering the league to try to make that bridge? I've actually got a former Bengal client right now. We helping him buy a house, got his house under contract. It's great. But we were talking about this, and he was like, man, it is so hard. But he went the extra mile to kind of learn about, to go into financial literacy, to get mentors. But I know he is definitely not the norm, right? And most of these guys don't get there. Most of these guys are out there buying Lamborghinis and driving around Miami. So what's the best advice you would give? And then maybe, besides Germaine Burton, what's maybe some of the craziest stories you've heard of people when they first enter the league?
Well, I think the best piece of advice, there's two that I give if anybody ever asks me, and they don't, is, well, stay off social media. Like, I know that it's easy to get into that world, and some of these guys come from bigger programs. They're used to the criticism that can come with it, but it can be a different level, especially if you're a high pick. Understand that you need to be shutting off mentions. Don't worry about that stuff, especially in year one, because that derails so many of these guys. They get in their head, they get caught up in it. They end up doing things like fighting back on Twitter or whatever. Like, do not do any of that. Like, get out of that. And then find the guy in the room, maybe your room, or just on defense, if you're a defensive player, whatever, who's been in the league for 10 years.
Yep.
And seems to and is where you want to be, and talk to him, befriend him, do everything he does, like take his advice.
You've got to have that mentor.
You have to, like, they're there. Like, these guys that are older want to do that for younger players, but younger players have to want that as well. Like you heard Shamar Stewart say, I'm going to live in Trey Hendrickson's pocket. And maybe there were better role models, whatever. But I love that. Like, that's what you should do. The guy that's where you want to be is where you should latch on to that person and follow what they do. Particularly, like, the thing that always happens in year 2 or 3 is like, I'm taking care of my body now. I wasn't before.
Right.
These guys that know how to take care of their body and the importance of doing it and the real grind and everything else, like, you need to understand go find their trainers, their massage therapists, understand what access you have to at the facility, all that stuff. So that's the biggest thing that I think is find that person that can help guide you through it. Before you go, I have a question for you. When we tell people, look, contact Sztanyo, he's your guy, what happens next? So, like, when they contact you, they info@teamsztanyo.com, or they hit the website, or they go and they hit you up on Twitter or whatever. What's like step one? Why it seems like it's probably an easy thing to go from there and get into your clan, yo.
That's a great question. I mean, because buying a house can feel a little overwhelming. There's a lot of things going on. So first step is we just schedule a consultation where we're just trying to figure out your goals. We're trying to figure out your situation, get to know you. What are you guys laughing at?
Well, no, we just did synchronized coffee drinking.
Yep.
Like, it was not planned. We just both went up and synchronized coffee drinking at the same time. And I was like, I was like, how did we do that?
We're just enjoying listening to you talk about your stuff.
It just put you right at ease, right into that.
It did.
Sip. Yeah. So we're gonna do a consultation, get to know you, understand your needs, your goals, share a little bit about the market, share a little bit about how we work, how our team works, answer any questions you guys have. Because we want you to work with us. We want to know if we want to work with you. So that's kind of and that's best to do in person if you're local. If not, that'll be a phone call or a Zoom call or something like that. Step 2, 3 steps real quick is, if you need a lender, if you're not buying cash, we're going to connect you with a trusted lender because it's really hard to go shopping if you can't buy a house. And so we've got some great preferred partners that we work with that are top notch. So we'll connect you, get you going through that financing process so that step number 3, we're going to set up a portal in the MLS based on everything you told us about what you're looking for to start sending you targeted homes that could work for you. So then we go shopping. It's pretty fun. But our aim is to be your trusted guide in the process, just a lot like a DJ Reader, maybe, or a Von Bell, to help, because it can be overwhelming. And there's a lot of things you don't know, especially if it's your first time buying a house. So that's our goal, is to be your trusted guide through the process.
Love that. That's great. So if you want a trusted guide through the process, you know who he is. Eric Sztanyo. info@teamsztanyo.com, www.teamsztanyo.com to connect, or you can find him on Twitter, Manyo3. Love that one. All right. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, buddy.
Guys, have a good one.
All right. I had a question for Sztanyo. He had a question for me. Now we've got all the Growl Pal questions out there. A lot of thoughts post-draft, so a lot to chug through. I will do my best to do what I'm not great at, and that is not being long-winded. I'll try to be concise and brief.
There's a
lot of doubters out there right now about that, but I'm going to try.
3 weeks from now, be as long-winded as you want, because there won't be as many of these questions. But we do have a lot of good draft questions. If yours wasn't about the draft, we'll probably hold on to it till next week or the weeks after, since we have a lot of those too. And you can send always your questions to the Growler Podcast at gmail.com and at the Growler Podcast on Twitter. We'll sometimes pop into there and take questions from there. So let's start with that. We'll start with some Twitter questions here. What do you anticipate the Bengals do with the $25 million they have remaining in cap money? This is before the Pratt release trade and maybe a Volson cut. What are they going to do with the money they've got left?
Yeah, well, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think that you're gonna see some kind of a defensive tackle probably added to the mix. It's not going to be inexpensive. There's not really like a high-priced guy out there, but I think you will probably see that. I think you'll see them poke around at safety, but like I mentioned, the special teams issue is a part of that. And what's going to happen with Hendrickson? How does that space, affect his number if they're trying to front load and like they did with T and with Jamar, front load that money, and people were complaining then, the cap number should have gone down on them. Well, Trey has a low-ish number considering what his value is and what the contract will end up looking like. So there could be an addition there, you would think, under an assumption that they're doing some kind of an extension with Trey. And so that you would think would probably be part of it. Again, the fact that deal could be anything makes it hard to specify what you think the cap number change will look like there. Because if you're just doing, I know we get questions like, just throw $10 million at him for this year. Well, if they do that, then that's what that looks like. That's a chunk where it comes out of. And they do have it to do that if they want to try to just get the one more year out of him and make him happy, or maybe add a second year with some kind of an option or whatever. So that is probably a part of the equation too. So until we get the specifics on what a Hendrickson extension looks like, you can't say exactly, but I would have an assumption that there's a chunk of that's going to be part of the Trey Hendrickson deal.
I mean, that's still a lot of money, and there's not a lot of things to spend it on anymore because, like you said, there's not a lot of attractive free agents that are still out there. What happens with what they don't spend? Does that just get rolled over to the next year? Like, do they just have an extra?
Well, it does get rolled. Don't forget they have to sign their entire rookie class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, that's I don't have the exact number in front of me. I should know this. The 6 guys have a number for this year that will count. I think it's like 9 or something. I don't hold me to that. I need to look that up. But that is a chunk of this too. So that is part of this cap that will come out of it as well. So that all adds up. And then they like to save space as the year goes on to be able to add players if they need to because of injuries or whatever. So they usually leave themselves some room, and they have traditionally had between, it depends on the year, but 5 to 10 rollover, or that's kind of there as they get going. They look at things like incentives and performance bonuses, and they count that before they ever get paid out as things that they like to leave space for. They're a big leave space for these things team. And so that's why that number is where it's at right now.
Next question. What can be gleaned from the acquisitions from free agency, the draft, and Al Golden's prior defense at Notre Dame? So what can you glean from all of that stuff to get a solid idea of what this defensive system is going to look like week 1?
What a great question. It is a great question that would be fantastic if there was, I don't know, 2,152 words on this exact topic as an insider story currently up on The Athletic. I highly recommend you going and listening. I did something on the behind the scenes of the entire Al Golden build and how they approached giving him his vision. Something that we heard Duke Tobin talk about pre-draft was, it really matters to me. I want to make sure that I am giving Al his vision, giving him what he wants. We're not just throwing players at the problem. We are working with Al specifically to give him what does that mean? What did that end up meaning? And it was a really fun story to write. A lot of good behind the scenes stuff there on some of the picks, on some of their process. And so go read that. I highly recommend that. It's an Athletic subscription. It gives. You're not going to be a loser in this, okay? But go give that story a read.
So is there some sort of tease that you can give us? You know how sometimes you click that before you log in, it gives you a paragraph or something. Can you give us like one?
No, absolutely. No, I didn't mean to only say go read the story. I was then going to go into. I just wanted to make sure I gave it the proper plug.
Well, yeah.
I think the big thing is versatility in the front seven. It is kind of Al has talked about this. This isn't necessarily a behind the scenes thing. But the thing that was the number one thing, like the line that was used to me was the number one thing that Al Golden articulated when he walked in the door was a player, honestly, that looks a lot like Shamar Stewart, is a player that is big enough and strong enough to do multiple things up front. So it's kick inside, play on the edge, where you can use them in different ways. And Al kept talking about it's having the same personnel on the field, but being able to do different things with them, line up differently, just a little tweak that changes the keys and the eyes of what the offense is looking at to keep them off balance. And you can only do that with certain types of players and archetypes that they didn't really have at linebacker and at edge. And so you saw them in what they did is kind of, they have now 3 new players that's what they are. They're versatile players that can do some different things there. And they also, you needed more run stopping power in the middle. If you're going to be doing all this with the linebackers and on the edges, you're going to be doing some of this tinkering and moving and versatility. Your middle, your like core up the spine needs to be stronger. And, I think so. If you look at one, I think they would have preferred to have gotten a pass rushing defensive tackle. It just didn't happen for them. The draft, they prioritized. It was like they went 0 for 4, but it was so close every time. It felt like, every single pick, defensive tackle was like this or that, and defensive tackle just kept missing because of the other priority being a step ahead. They have revamped their linebacker room, but they do have run stoppers in the middle. Right there, right now. And so I think that you could see that's also part of the plan, is to have a stronger base, a stronger spine, and then be able to do different things with versatile pieces around them.
And so when did the story come out?
This morning.
Okay, this morning.
Yeah, I was working on it all week.
A bad friend that I have not read the big story.
It was brand new. I was what I was doing kind of under the radar this week. There's some stuff from the Potts show is in there, some stuff from Zach Taylor, Al Golden, Duke Tobin. So you can go read through some of that now.
So yeah, just hearing what you're saying, and I'm going to surmise too that just because they didn't get any cornerbacks and they exercised Dax's option there for the 5th year, that they must really like the corners that, or at least Al's got to like them enough that they didn't use any of that capital on safeties or cornerbacks or anything there.
That was it. I mean, you couldn't fix it all in one swoop.
Yeah.
And I think they felt like the safest bet that they had on the roster was their secondary, their young secondary that they invested in. I mean, they just think they believe that those guys can get right with the right coordinator kind of getting them going. And so that was a bet they made there, and they made more changes, at least some changes up front. A lot of it is run it back, but run it back a little differently.
For the people that were mad though about them not taking Xavier Watts and just seeing how much leeway they've given Al Golden, it's like if Al Golden wanted Xavier Watts, he would have been a Bengal. He was a great college player, but I mean that's not one to get furious about. But here we got another good draft question here for the first round. Given the emphasis on character throughout the draft, do you think that Nolen was ever really a target for them?
Yes.
Very simple. Finally, some just simple.
Yeah, I mean, look, character mattered, and that is 100% part of it. But there's a balance. And Potts talked specifically about this concept when we asked him about character at the show on Tuesday. Look, it's part of it. Like, yeah, we love the idea of all in that, and that was certainly something that we felt if the board fell our way, it would be a feature of this draft, and we wanted that. But they weren't gonna, he talked about you're not going to take a guy off your board because of a tick of character. I think Nolen was viewed as a tick of character of maybe there's some immaturity there you'd have to work through. You know what? Amarius Mims had some tick of maturity that you had to work through too. And that was noted when they drafted him last year. And you don't think they would take the Amarius Mims of defensive tackles today? Nolen could be that. And I absolutely think Walter Nolen was in the mix. There was, like any draft, if you look at the 5 to 6 picks in front of where you went, I guarantee you there were some guys that they would have taken over top of who they took. Like that's the draft. Teams view it for the most part similarly at the top. And so I think, they would have taken Walter Nolen. He was not off a board or anything like that. Definitely in play. It was not a character takes you off the board situation with him.
I think that would have been the most interesting thing is if they had to decide between him and Stewart. If Harmon didn't have the medical issues that he did, then maybe that question gets a little bit more difficult to answer, whether you go with the interior pass rush or take that stab on Stewart. But with the way the things fell and what they were looking for, it does seem to make sense as a pick. The defense seemed focused on stopping the run first. And that seems like a justification for the lack of pass rush at defensive tackle. If the plan is to score 30-plus points every game, won't that force the other team to pass more, which should exploit the lack of pass rush? It seems short-sighted. I know you kind of covered that a little bit, but
yeah. Well, I'll say there's kind of 3 things here. The draft didn't really fall their way, and they didn't prioritize it over linebackers in round 2 and 4. I don't like. I mean, look, they're giving Al his vision, and that's sort of the theme here. I don't like passing on defensive tackle in round 4. I think that's the error in this draft. I can buy Demetrius Knight in 2. They felt like he was the perfect person to kind of build around and with what they needed. And so if that's what they felt, that's what they felt. They went early, but he wouldn't have been there at 81. So if you're not trading back, which is another topic for another day, then that's where you land. It's the double up in 4 when you had defensive tackles available. Josh Farmer from Florida State. By the way, there's a guy from South Carolina named Tonka Hemingway. I've never had more regret that I don't get to cover Tonka Hemingway. What an amazing name.
Gosh, you really missed out on a solid name choice there.
What could have been Tonka, Team Tonka, and he's a truck. I mean, he's a defensive tackle. He's a big defensive tackle. Hemingway.
Yeah, Tonka anything is a winner, and then you throw the Hemingway. That seems just like a real curveball there. What
an amazing name. Which, by the way, Tonka Hemingway from South Carolina. A little nugget. Zach Taylor doesn't go on many pro day visits. He does like one a year where there's a bunch of guys that are probably going to get drafted. He was supposed to go to South Carolina as his trip this year. They had a ton of. They ended up with 5 defensive players drafted in the first 4 rounds, including Tonka. But it got canceled because T and Jamar signed the day he was supposed to go. And so he didn't end up going. But that's how much they loved South Carolina's defense, and they ended up with Demetrius Knight. They brought in TJ Sanders for a visit, the defensive tackle. So I think they thought there was a chance. We had the Gamecocks question. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Who knew? Maybe that was a Zach Taylor burner account.
Why didn't he bring up Tonka Hemingway in the question then? You have a Tonka Hemingway on your team and you don't even bring that up? Come on, guy. Letting us down.
Sad to have missed out on Tonka. But that's a spot where I think you could have seen them, and then you'd feel like, okay, you can see a little bit of where it's going. And the fact that they do want to use their edges a little bit more as interior pass rushers in situations, which we heard Al talk about after the draft, is part of this too. And they'll see what they get out of the some of the UDFAs if they can help contribute to depth there.
Here's another good Twitter question. At this point, are Germaine Burton and Charlie Jones in danger of making the final cut? And would the team really dare to fiddle with the kicking operation considering the issues that Money Mac had last year?
Yeah, so they brought in Michigan's long snapper, William Wagner. Dane Brugler's #1 long snapper, which I got to talk to Dane about that, man. Tell me about your long snapper rankings.
Yeah. How do you really break down that film?
Yeah. Well, somewhere there's a long snapper expert that I'm sure he taps into, but I love that. But yeah, no, I think Cal needs to be uncomfortable. He wasn't perfect last year in the same, and you could probably say the same thing about Evan, but they're not going to make Evan uncomfortable right now. I think Evan is better if he's just left on his own to do his thing and work it out. He's a calm, cool, collected, smart kid. I think if he has another year like last year, you apply pressure to Evan, or maybe that happens midseason if it's not going well. But I think, if you want, Cal's not untouchable. He was an undrafted free agent. I mean, and so why not bring in somebody else? Ryan Rico showed up as a third punter in camp last year, and look what happened. You're like, yeah, he dropped the snap trying to beat Baltimore, but he had a great year as a punt. Like, I'm just saying, you bring in the competition, see what happens, and push. Don't be afraid to push the other guys. I think that's a situation. And yeah, the thing is, you would be potentially messing with an operation, but you'd have all off season, to be working on that and seeing if somebody else is your guy. So I don't know. Cal likely holds him off, but nothing wrong with some competition.
If we're talking about interesting camp battles, Cleveland has 5 quarterbacks, and we're talking about multiple long snappers. That's where we're at on the drama scale right now.
Give me 2 long snappers over 5 quarterbacks any day.
Absolutely. All right, here's our next question. This is from Randy. He says he's really enjoying all the shows. Do you have an update on the health of Seth McLaughlin and whether he's expected to be ready for training camp? I think he stands a decent chance of sticking with the team and potentially being the replacement for Karras down the line. What are your thoughts from a longtime Buckeyes and Bengals fan in Georgia? That's not easy.
Yeah, that's not easy. I think that they understand that there's a medical there. The medical there with Seth, but they felt obviously like Dane had him as a 3rd, 4th round prospect, that he's obviously a draftable player, and they liked him. It's gonna be you just take the chance on health here, and you just take the chance that when he gets right. I can't speak to the specific training camp timeline. In terms of, he'll be there or he won't. I mean, there's hope and expectations of certain things, but I think they're going to have to work through medical early. And I don't know what list he lands on, but I would assume that he's probably a PUP candidate or something like that. But you see, like last year, there was a thought that Eric All would not necessarily be able to participate early in camp, or he might not be ready for the start of the season. And he was in great shape at the beginning of the year. Now, obviously, it didn't turn out that way. He ended up having the re-injury, and we know what issues he's had. But, guys can be ahead of a timeline. I just think that it's a lot of, let's just focus on get him in here. Let's get him healthy. Let's get him to 100%. We don't need him right now. And then when he gets to 100%, let's see what we got. And so I don't know if that's going to be the beginning of training camp, but I think that they'll have to deal with him early in the season, just being somebody who's there and they're rehabbing. But yeah, I think they like him as a player, assuming they can get him back to the level of player that he was before his injury.
I mean, definitely an interesting guy to have in the mix with Matt Lee as you're talking about maybe the future of that position someday. And another thing that maybe is not thrilling to keep an eye on, but definitely interesting and important to the future. This next question, this is from a Paul. And I do want to say that, we always give special preference to the emails that start with glowing praise for us, talking about how much they love the shows, the network, all of that stuff. But we also will prioritize any question that comes from somebody with one of our names. So because this comes from another Paul, we're going to move it up the list here. He said he's always made like Belinda Carlisle and left the light on for Joseph Ossai. Him becoming the player we thought he would be when we drafted him. The player he played like in that first preseason training camp. The player that ripped up the Bucks that August. The player that played awesome in the AFC Championship game before that moment. He saw that you were interviewing him along with everybody else in the locker room. And so he had a Joseph Ossai question for you. What is the percentage of the probabilities that you would give to, one, Joseph being the day one starter in September, beating out Stewart and Murphy in training camp, two, getting significantly increased snaps this year, and three, being extended again beyond 1 year? What is the percentage you're putting on all of those?
Those are all low. He's not beating. The biggest thing with Myles Murphy is he needs to play more. That's how they view it. And so Joseph Ossai is not going to play in front of Myles Murphy. Now, if Trey Henderson isn't here and you have an extra spot opened up, maybe that changes things. But no, he's not going to be in front of Myles Murphy again. This is all barring injury, obviously. Significantly increased snaps. I mean, he played a decent amount of snaps last year. I don't think it'll be significantly increased. I think he's going to be rotational. And so, but there will be games, because there's always injuries that he'll probably get in more, but I don't think a significant increase is in play. He's not going to get, he'll be back in free agency next year. They're not going to extend him before he's even done anything. They made the deal, 1 year deal, 1 year, prove it. He's motivated. He looks strong, and that's great. He sounds motivated. He seemed to gain maturity and momentum last year. I think they're happy about that. They love having that as a rotational piece for them that they could lean on if they need it. And, but they're not going to extend him. They're going to let him play out the year, and then they'll revisit the contract at that point and see if they can keep him then. Or what that looks like, but he still has to go prove it again. And so I don't think there's not some like secret buy-in to Joseph Ossai being the guy that's their like special secret weapon here.
Yeah, it also sort of feels like, because I was feeling the same way about Ossai here as Paul is, at least coming off of last season, because he finished the season strong. And I thought like, all right, maybe he's getting to what we thought he would be, giving you a little bit of juice there. But with that defensive coordinator change and just some of the stuff that we've heard about like why that happened and playing the younger guys more and how there's that real impetus to do that. Yeah, none of that stuff bodes well for him having like a majorly increased role. But definitely a role, and definitely an important role, like even in, less snaps, he's still going to get a decent amount of snaps in that rotation. But yeah, I don't think that any of those three is going to really be increased for him at that point. Although I like the optimism. I like the optimism of that question much better than I do from this next question. He says he loves the show. Keep up the great work. What do you think the odds are that Cordell Volson ends up starting? And if he doesn't, do you think there's a chance I like this part, that they could trade him and potentially get a rotational defensive tackle with some pass rushing ability? Do you think that we're going to
recreate Billy Price for BJ Hill? Yeah. I would
love it.
The Bengals don't trade often, as we have documented a lot, but they do when it is someone that they are just going to end up cutting at the end of the preseason. And so if that does go to that place with Cordell Volson and they have another position that they feel weak at, like defensive tackle, I think they would 100% be open to doing Billy Price for BJ Hill again with Cordell Volson, because it was an unbelievable fleecing. I think that's certainly something that would be in play, though. But I think that goes, and this is kind of a cop-out, I think that goes across the board for anybody they'd be letting go. But certainly you can find value for offensive linemen that have played in the league at that time of year, because everybody's looking for that at that time of year. So, I think that would be in play. But I also think they're going to give Volson a real shot. he's going to be in the mix there and see what he looks like. See if he looks like he's improved and Scott Peters has helped him. Peters seems to think he can. So we'll see what that looks like.
I mean, I sort of laugh at the idea of a trade for Volson just because of, where he was ranked in some of those stats last year. But, Alex Kappa got some money this offseason, and I didn't see him getting, signed for that number. So
they played at about the same level last year. And so, I mean, teams are, when it comes to offensive line, man, especially when you get close to the season, you've got a couple dings on your from camp or whatever. Teams get desperate and do dumb things. And so that could certainly happen. Let's see. Let's do it's Growl Pal Spotlight.
So we've only been doing this for a little while. And what I like about it is, we talk so much about how much we appreciate all the Growl Pals. We got a lot of people that are into a lot of cool different things and causes and charities. We want to prop them up in our community. We also did say small businesses. We were going to do that as well. And we haven't really gotten to one yet until today. Right. So we had a Growl Pal, Danny, that sent us a note about his business. He's a huge Bengals fan, but he also owns his own mobile detailing company called Danny's Mobile Detailing. Very creative name. I like that, Danny. Way to go.
People need to know what it is. All right. I like being specific. It's like I was talking the other day about how we called it the Bengals Beat Podcast because I wanted to have it originally the simplest podcast name so you know exactly what you were getting. That's why I appreciate Danny's Mobile Detailing.
And he said, he's a small, newer company, so he doesn't have like a huge marketing budget. That's why he did reach out to us. And so, yeah, of course, we're going to give you a shout out, Danny. So you guys can look up Danny's Mobile Detailing. And the one thing he did say is, he's got a great, funny idea for a future Growler bet. Not as interested in that, but we're willing to hear it out. But he also is going to offer to detail one of our cars, right? So I say we open this up to the Growl Pals.
I like that. Yeah.
Keep it in the family and let's do that. So how do you think we should give this away? What should we do?
Well, you know what? If Danny's going to show up to your car, I think there needs to be a reason.
Yeah.
So what if we do people email us thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com. What is the most embarrassing thing in your car right now that if Danny showed up, he'd have some questions, right? like, because I'm sure God knows what you see if you're in the detailing business. But I say, send us that, and we'll pick. I'm not going to give you criteria what we're looking for. We'll just pick out of those that send us in what the most embarrassing thing is in their car right now, and then that winner, Danny will show up and detail your car. How about that?
So you can send those to thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com.
Love it. Love it. What's the most embarrassing thing in your car right now?
Right now, it's probably like a soccer jersey from 3 seasons ago because I just have so much soccer stuff in the back of my car right now, just mismatched socks and other things like that for, a kid that forgets his shin guards or forgets her jersey or something. I've got lots of spares back there, and it's just kind of a mess over the season. So probably soccer equipment, which honestly, my car's not in terrible shape. What's the worst thing in yours?
Yeah, it's not too bad. We have it's not, I'm not embarrassed by this. It's actually a point of pride. My wife put this together. It's a throw up kit. Okay. So like in case one of the kids ever throws up, there is a bin with all the things you would need, whether it's like the cleaning stuff, it's like a lollipop. It's you name it, all the stuff that you would ever need. If one of the kids throws up in the car, right there in a bin, and you just pull it out, open it up in case of emergency if you need it. So I'm not necessarily embarrassed by it, but I'm sure it would elicit some questions like, what is all of this stuff, But so that's in there.
Have you had any throw-ups in your
Oh yeah, they just come in handy. Trust me, there is nothing like the feeling when the throw-up happens and you're like, oh my God, we have the kit. Yes, because it sits in there. It's happened twice in the entire time we've had kids, and my daughter's turning 8 this weekend. But man, those 2 times, thrilled to have the kit.
Yeah, we've had 0 in 12 years, so I'm going to knock on wood here that I'm not calling Danny's Mobile Detailing here in the next week because of that. Yeah,
you might need it. Where are you at next? The Key West trip. You took some of the wrecks.
Yeah, I hit up a handful of your wrecks, and it was a great trip. Awesome trip. There's really no place like Key West. It's
No.
it's tough to overstate it, but I mean, it was awesome. It was a really killer week. The shows were fun, and you know how great that place is. So Key West was awesome. This week, it's not as exotic. I am at Comedy Off Broadway in Lexington, Kentucky, Friday and Saturday with David Nile. So I did hear from some Lexington Growl Pals, though. When I put out the call for what city should I come to, I did get a few that were like, hey, come down to Lexington. That's pretty close to you. And there's some Bengals fans down there. So if you live in the Lexington area, come out Friday and Saturday, 2 shows each night, and come say hi.
Yeah, I mean, and it's Kentucky Derby weekend, and it's not Keeneland is there in Lexington, which is my personal
It
favorite.
is superior.
I mean, Keeneland is as good as it gets, in my opinion. So lots of maybe you get some horse bits into your. Can you get some bits on horses? You gotta feel like that would resonate.
You got to pander a little bit,
Yeah, you got any good horse stuff?
Yeah, maybe I'll come up with a horse joke sometime tonight on the drive down there. Yeah,
it is kind of sad that there is a horse named Journalism this year. That's like one of the
favorite,
favorites.
right? Yeah, who named that horse? Like
Somebody,
that's a weird journalism. Like who just puts the entire field?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough one. There's always so many fun horse names. It feels like at least talk about one of the more enjoyable parts of being a journalist. There aren't many.
Free Buffet in Lane 7,
Free Buffet is actually a great horse name.
It is much better than just journalism.
Yeah. Free Buffet, berated by 22-year-olds. I just feel like there's a lot of different directions we could go.
We got to. So come out and see me in Lexington this weekend. We've got to get into dad life now because I know we both have a few things. Well, first you've got sleepover, and that's big. I don't think we've ever done one bigger than 5. I will say, my daughter, here's my piece of advice to you: feed the children. That's important.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
my daughter,
we should probably do that.
She went on one, and the next morning for breakfast, the mom was like, okay, you guys can all fend for yourselves. And I'm like, oh no, she's not a fend for herself kid. And so she just kind of starved until like one of her friends made her an egg that had shells in it and stuff. Because, they're 11. They're not really great cooks at that age. So, go ahead and call the play and feed the children the next morning. That's a big one.
Yeah. No, there will be set meals. There's no, hey, the kitchen is yours to explore. No, there will be the plates are on the table. The plates are on the table. All right. So go ahead and feel free to go eat. No, I have good feelings about it. I think it's been great. We've done versions of this at other kids' houses and they've had that. And so I don't think we'll have much problem. I think it'll be fine. We're going to do it right. But if
anything happens, you've got the throw up kit in the car. You can always go get that and
always got the throw up kit ready.
What else is going on in your dad life world?
So we're in soccer season.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a bit of a bone to pick with the auto arm letter soccer fields. Okay. Now, if you've ever done soccer, you know these fields. There's a million fields out there. They're down on the river. They were just underwater by like 17 feet a couple of weeks ago. They anytime the river floods at all, it covers those fields. But it's a madhouse on really most days, but on weekends especially. It's just games everywhere as far as the eye can see, parking craziness, one way in, one way out. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people out at these fields in this park. And so after a recent game, there is a big facility right in the middle with the playground next to it, bathrooms, things of the like in there. The bathrooms were closed, locked, not open.
Locked on a soccer weekend?
I mean, there are maybe 1,000 people in this park. Okay. It's a hive of activity. And for some reason, I have no idea why, they have decided that they're not opening the bathrooms. Like, I guess there maybe wasn't one person who could go in and get them ready or clean them, or I don't know the reason. And if you're listening now, you're a Growl Pal and you're aware of this situation, please let me know how you would have 1,000 people into a park on a Saturday and then be like, let's not open the bathrooms. let's just leave them closed. I'm like,
Yeah.
how is this possible? How does that decision end up being reached? Now, there were some porta potties scattered across the land, which is fine, but you have this facility. You
Right.
built it. It's very nice looking.
I
And
think
you're
we
not
should-
going to open it. If not now, when?
Yeah,
It
what are
is
you
prime
saving
soccer
for?
season. You have 25 fields out here. They're all full of people and kids and grandmas and everybody.
Yeah.
And you're like, nah, not today.
There's
I
a
don't
lot of
think so.
moms out there that are drinking from those Yeti cups, and I'm not sure what's in them, but they need to use that bathroom ASAP. And so I think we also should hear from any Growl Pal that has good advice on just picking a lock. So the next time that this happens, you can be the hero that opens the bathrooms for everybody else and brings that power back to the people. We want the Growl Pal Ocean's 11 people to chime in with how you can really pick a lock or get around some sort of security system preventing you from reaching the bathrooms.
Yeah, I was just a little bit. That one was. I need to let that out. I just need to let it out. That's all. All right, what do you got?
So my daughters, the older two, are big Star Wars kids, which is not something I forced on them. It's kind of funny to see how that's grown, but it was the cartoons at first, and then they started watching some of the older movies, and then a few of the newer ones. But Revenge of the Sith was having its 20th anniversary, so it's back in theaters. And so I thought this is a cool time to take the older two to a movie theater. They don't go to the theater a lot because that's not something kids do anymore. And they'll get to see a movie that they have seen before and liked, but they'll get to see it on the big screen. And so we did that. It was a Wednesday night because that was the last night it was in the theater. So, that was a little bit dicey on a school night to have a 9-year-old in a PG-13 movie at, 10 o'clock at night by the time we left. But I won't forget this. So we're leaving the theater. They had a great time, awesome time. We got the big popcorn that we all shared, and I think we had like Sour Patch Kids or something like that. But leaving the theater, my oldest daughter just kind of looked around at everybody else, and she's like, "Is this what the movies is? Is it just all single fat guys going by themselves to the movies?" And I could not get a better generalization for the Star Wars fan that's going to that 20th anniversary showing of that movie. And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of what it is for this. Not for all movies, but for this, yep. It's a lot of just white guys on their own, a little bit overweight. That's what you're going to get at the theater.
That's it. It's not, there's no running from it.
No.
It's right there in front of you. You can't claim anything else. That's okay. there's certain demographics for certain movies.
Yeah, I tried to communicate. This is just kind of a Star Wars middle of the week thing, not necessarily an indictment on all of society or the movie theater in general. It was just more that specific showing.
Although as movie theaters become more and more phased out, I have a feeling it will just be where, older, overweight dudes just like go to hang on to their youth, and it's just that is kind of what it is.
The movie theater is the last place you can go and order a medium soda and have it a 64-ounce soda given to you. So like you feel good. I just got a medium, and the medium there is 64 ounces. So some people like to live life that way without the judgment, and that's one of the few places you can still get away with that.
No question. All right, what do we see next week? We'll be back. Schedule release is really the next thing on the agenda. Really, the last thing that phase 2 starts next week. Oh man,
phase 2. Let's go.
Let's go. Wow, players on the field.
That's
not
huge.
Really doing much. I can't stress how little they really do. So that will be going on. So we'll have that, and then schedule releases on the 14th. So get
That's
ready
big.
to plan your trips and stuff like that. We're excited about that. But we'll be talking about all of it. We'll be back next week. We'll have all that stuff and more. So, all right. Thanks everybody for listening and for watching. Talk to you next time.